Hello, everyone. Welcome to EdTalk, where we speak about issues, perspectives, and trends in education. My name is Cecile C. Williamson, and I will be having a conversation with Mrs. Michelle Golden Hylton about challenges within the special needs education community, specifically the visually impaired. Mrs. Golden Hylton is a trained teacher. She is an HR specialist and she holds a degree in HR. She has a postgraduate diploma in education and training and also a master's degree in educational policy and planning. She is an advocate for women, children, and persons with disabilities. She is also one of the founding members of the WMW Jamaica. All right, so Mrs. Ilton, who is here with
Hi,
us.
Steve, how are you doing?
I am doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great.
Lovely. All right, so you also work with Salvation Army School for the Blind, and
Right.
so
I'm
she
on
work.
what is called an itinerant teacher or integrated teacher. So I visit schools that blind person or low vision student have been assigned to based on their PEP examination. So if they pass the PEP for these school, then they matriculate to the schools.
Okay, you mentioned two of the schools. Are you referring to high schools?
Yeah, what is called, I would call quote unquote high schools. So
Okay.
the name schools like Early Childhood, Jamaica College, Meadowbrook, Queens, and so forth and so on.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. And we'll definitely go dig a little deeper into that aspect further on in our discussion. But before we go there, can you give us a brief background about Salvation Army School for the Blind?
Okay, the school in fact started in 1927 and it was founded by Colonel John Barrett and his wife Elizabeth. And they started first downtown on King Street, and the institution was relocated to Slipe Road in 1937. And then in 1972, it moved to its current location. And the main aim of the school at the time was to provide education for persons who were impaired, children who had problems with their vision.
Okay. All right.
So the
Thank you
focus
for
at
that.
that time, the focus was skills training at the inception and braille literacy. But now we provide a wide range of academic subjects, along with
Okay.
skills training and adaptive skills.
Okay, thank you. Now, you mentioned skills training because that's a follow-up question that I have as it relates to what you were saying earlier about, after training there now at the primary level, I'm thinking that they'll move on to high schools, right? So I wanted to also know about skills training, but you're saying now that they actually do skills training at School for the Blind, correct?
Right, we do vocational subjects. We also do a subject. In fact, this is called a composite school, in that we have from early childhood right up to secondary.
Okay, all right, lovely. That's actually good to know. All right. So can you tell us about some of the skills that they're learning there?
For example, they do visual arts, so they learn how to make craft items such as face masks and runners, things that tactile stuff that they can make.
Okay.
They also learn music, and so you have a person who teach them how to use the piano, the drums, and also voice training. And they are
Okay.
now currently also learning agriculture. We have an agricultural department for some students who might not be academically inclined, but might, because at the end of the day, we want all persons leaving this institution to be able to cope in the general society.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so you mentioned your role earlier, but can you tell us what your role entails at School for the Blind?
Okay, so I work at both spectrum. I'm what is called an integrated and outreach teacher. So I also try to liaison and network with organization and hospital to identify children from 0 to 14 who have eye condition or who were born blind, and try to get them, prepare them for enrollment into the school. So we have sensitization training with the parents for potty training and stuff like that, giving them information how they can help them, their children to be, or child to be independent. So when they come to school, they're already potty trained.
Okay.
And then on the other spectrum, I visit the schools that the blind or low vision student attends, and meet with teachers, meet with parents, meet with the student themselves, trying to get them to be on par with their sighted counterpart. So we try to engage the teacher in discussing strategies in how we will impart information to the student.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that. You were mentioning earlier about some aspects of the curriculum, right? And you mentioned the skills training aspects or the vocation training, where they're learning crafts, voice training, agriculture, and you're catering. So is it that you're catering to students between the ages of 0 to 14, correct?
No, we're catering to students from at the school 4 to 21.
4 to 21. Okay, but
right,
initially
we have students that goes up to pay. We have students who sit the catered exam, and maybe by the time they finish, they are 21 years old.
Okay, then. Okay, so 4 to 21. But based on your role, you engage with students between the ages outside of
0 to right,
of
0
14.
to 21.
Okay. Okay,
right.
Great. Okay. All right. This is really great because, as you mentioned, you start working with them outside of the school at a very early stage. You start to get them to, learn how to do certain things, such as potty training before they actually start school, which is very good. So what I also want to know is, in terms of the population there at School for the Blind, do you have an idea of how many students are there, or what capacity you can hold at School for the Blind? And, do you turn back students, in the event that you're full?
Capacity, we have less students and the capacity. Because of COVID-19 protocols, we really don't. We try to have social distancing. The dorm we have is a boarding facility also, and we have persons that commute. So for the boarders, we mainly take persons who are from rural parishes.
Okay.
In order to cut down on the number of persons, because we have to have the setting in a certain way to meet the Ministry of Health guidelines. However, the total population, the last census, was 148 in all. Those are include boarders, persons in the integrated program, and persons who are what you call day student. So they don't board, but they go home every evening to their parents.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to just move on. So you mentioned about, you said the integrated program, but I want you to shed some light on what the curriculum entails. What does this integrated curriculum entails?
Okay, the program itself, the integrated program, is the same curriculum like any other high school. The only difference is that the student will learn other adaptive skills, like they will learn plane traveling, or they can mobility training where they learn how to move about with their kids and how
Okay.
to identify cues and stuff like that. They also learn how to what they call orientation. So they're orientating how to manage their money, how to negotiate with persons for support and stuff like that. So, and how to manage themselves in the kitchen. So they learn additional skill, as you know. If you're not seeing, remember some persons learn by sight. It is a restriction. So they learn all these adaptive skills so they can function relatively in
society.
Society.
Absolutely, and this is
And
very
right. So for this school, some persons might think it's a home. It's not a home. It's a school. So just like the early childhood department is the same early childhood curriculum that you find in any other early childhood institution. The primary department is the same. It's the same curriculum they use in the primary department and also in the high school. We also have our high school here. That persons who have matriculated to other high schools that they stay here, and so they have the same curriculum and some additional things like braille reading and writing, and they also have information technology because they have to know how to manipulate the software, the speaking softwares and stuff like that. So they have some additional activity and of course orientation, mobility.
Okay, all right. This is some critical information here because I was not familiar with this integrated, curriculum that they're learning about. They're learning the adaptive skills, orientation in terms of their money management, and of course there's a braille reading. So if this is a part of the curriculum, yes. What about the supported? Do you have adequate supported resources to support this sort of curriculum?
In terms of the teaching staff is at the highest quality. However, we need additional support, and we get support from volunteers and from the universities, from some of the high schools, like Immaculate is very supportive, St. George's, Arden High School, the Queen's High School. Those high schools are and Calabar High School are very supportive of our program. And so they volunteer and they send students to us. So those students assist in the homework program.
Okay.
Where we need additional person, like you might have one-on-one person to reinforce some ideas and just to help the student to complete his or her homework.
Okay, and this is good news.
And especially during exam time, we really need some additional volunteers. And so in this medium, I would like to put it out there, in April, when we'll be doing our exam, we'd love some persons if they could offer some support, because those exams occur during the day time.
And as you mentioned, okay, good. And further on in our conversation, we'll definitely highlight the types of support, including this one that you need there at Salvation Army School for the Blind. You mentioned exam. There's exam in April. All right. So is it April that's in April alone that you'll have exam and assessments, or do you have?
We have assessment throughout the year, but okay. I don't know the exact. I can't tell you the exact dates, but I know we have one coming up. I'd have to double check even that date that I just gave you.
Okay, all right, that is fine. And so in terms of your exam, your assessments, can you shed some light now on how these assessments are conducted? Because some of these persons, they won't be able to, conduct the assessments or participate, I should say, the regular way that we all know it. So can you just share with us how these assessments are done?
It's done like in any regular school. During COVID, we had a special where persons could actually assist online, but we are now
Okay.
back face to face. So we'll be assessing in the auditorium, in our auditorium, and the volunteered work. If, for example, you have students who are braille readers, so those students who are braille readers will use their braille to answer their examination question. So some persons who are not very good at their braille as yet, they use what is called a reader writer. So the person read the exam for them, and the student tell the person the answer, and the person record the information on their test paper.
Okay.
And there's an
Oh,
invigilator in the room that moves around the room to prevent any, I would say, any problem or any cheating, any stuff like that.
okay. All
Have more
right.
than one invigilator in the room.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely need some persons there to assist with the assessment process, correct?
Right, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
And I can imagine how time consuming sometimes it can be. So, you can really just understand that the help, the support is needed for more persons because typically when an assessment is done, it's not really done in a group setting, really. It's individual students that you're assessing, correct?
Right, yes, yes. But
Okay.
assessment is also used by journals and stuff. But
Okay, that
in the formal assessment, yes, it's a one-on-one.
one and one.
Right
Okay.
here.
All right. So definitely support is needed in that area for persons to come out, volunteer, and of course at the end, Mrs. Ilton is going to give us the contact information and so on, where you can reach out to Salvation Army School for the Blind to participate in their upcoming assessments in April. All right, so that would be one of your challenges. Now, can you just shed some light now on some other challenges that you are being faced with there over there at Salvation Army School for the Blind as it relates to maybe it's in the classroom, maybe outside of the classroom? What are some of these challenges that you're being faced with?
One of the needs, I don't call everything a challenge, but one of the needs
Okay.
is that the persons have the resources to extend. They could maybe offer, stuff like donation to the kitchen, so they can offer a better meal to the students, because the resources, financial resources, might be limited. So if they want to make a donation every month to the kitchen, that would be fine. That would be good. Secondly, there are students here who doesn't have parents who are financially capable. So you might need persons to sponsor persons' boarding fee. Although there's no school fee, there's a boarding fee, which is very minuscule, very small. So if persons out there who want to maybe sponsor a child, mentor a child, we will vet them, and then especially for the mentorship, and then the guidance council will make a decision if this person is suitable to mentor the child. But you can sponsor a child. It's you can always come in and speak to the person, and the guidance counselor, he will tell you the child that is in need.
Okay. All right. Thank you
And
so much.
also
Mhm.
persons with maybe skills. Sometimes we might not think we have skill, but like on the weekends or in the afternoon, there are some students who might have more than one disability. They're not only visually impaired, but they might have another disability. If you have a skill like maybe floral arrangement that you want to share, or weaving basket, maybe you can offer your service as a volunteer in that area. It's not only academics, we need volunteer. So if that person say, okay, for the month of May, I want to teach somebody how to make this arrangement, that would be wonderful.
Okay. All right. That definitely sounds like a good idea there. So in terms of some needs, right? You mentioned there's a need for proper meals for the students there, maybe towards the boarding fee. Are you able to say how much the boarding fee is
It's less
right
than
now?
it's less than 3 7 is what it's less than 25,000 a year.
Oh, for the year.
Right. I don't want to tell it, but I know that it is less than 25,000 for the
Okay.
entire.
All right, no problem. And also you mentioned that if you can mentor a child as well or even sponsor a child, definitely that is something that they are open to at Salvation Army School for the Blind. If you have special skills, that you can impart your knowledge, your competencies, over there, you can go and you can volunteer in that way, whether it's floral arrangements, weaving baskets, any skill that you think would help the children there. All right. So you mentioned some support that you have received so far from some of the high schools. Here, are there any other support in terms of sending persons to assist, to volunteer with the students, to provide assistance with homework in your homework program, and also in the assessment process? Are there any other support that you have received that you want to highlight right now?
Yes, sometimes we receive support in kind from companies, and that would from companies in Jamaica that provide maybe additional food stuff for the kitchen, or they might give the children stuff directly. We have received support in that capacity. We have also received support in terms of braille machine, which is very, very expensive. And so persons might donate one braille machine, because one braille machine actually costs 100 and something thousand Jamaican dollars.
All right.
We have received support in that capacity and in technology, in improving our technology, because you have screen readers and stuff like that, where persons with low vision can enlarge stuff so they can see it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So would you say you have adequate technological resources, or would you need some support in that area as well?
I think, in my own opinion, it's not adequate. And remember that technology need upgrading. So although we might have some technology there is a need for upgrading the technology.
Okay.
I would still would want improvement in technology in terms of the upgrading of the technology that we have. And also in like recorders, I don't think we have enough record like stuff, student might want to tape information for themselves outside of their phone, because it's a large volume of information.
Yes.
They want to save from different books and stuff. So although they might download ebooks and stuff, sometimes the information is not adequate. So we will always need additional information and additional technological support.
And I can understand and relate as well, because a recording, within a few minutes, it's a couple megabytes, right? And it really takes up some space right there. All right. So finally,
in addition, I think also for the younger children, my pet peeve is that they start them with IT training from the infant department. But once they can conquer it, then they have both the braille and also IT skills, so they can manage. They can be more independent.
Yes. So is it that they, in the early childhood stages do they use technology? Do they currently use technology?
At the early, they have the tablets and stuff, but they mainly use the braille. They have to gain braille skills.
Braille skills. Okay. All right. So earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that after school, or at the end of their study there at Salvation Army School for the Blind, that they move on into high schools, right? So
not all of them. Some
not all of them.
Right, based on your PEP. If you at the primary level, if you sit the PEP exam, everyone sit the PEP exam that have the capacity. So once they pass for another school, they go to the other school, and then my department provide any support.
as well. So
along with the
you
special education unit at Keynote Center.
at the Ministry of Education,
Yeah, they have a
you
special education unit at
mhm.
Keynote Center. Right.
So you work alongside them, which is very good. So even though, and I'm getting to understand that even though you um you deal with, or you educate students now between the ages of 4, you mentioned, to 21, right?
Right.
You're also a part of their learning and development from 0, right? And even
Yes.
after they leave your institution, you're still engaging them to help them to move forward in life, correct?
Not so much when they leave, as unless they're in, for example, a CAP program or a
Mm-hmm.
vocational program. If they go on to UA, for example, a number of them have gone matriculated to the University of the West Indies. They
Okay.
are now the University of the West Indies have a special education unit that is
Okay.
responsible for them there. So we do not provide support, but in some other institution where they might go for a CAP program, a vocational program to learn data entry and stuff like that, we offer support.
Okay. So it's
Right,
only in special or certain circumstances that
right,
you'll
right,
assist
right.
them
So,
after. Okay.
right, yes.
Okay. All
So
right.
I think that
And
is where, but I must say, since you asked that question, that is
mm-hmm.
where the gap is. Because I would say if you have 100 students, maybe a 10% might matriculate to the university. For the others, although they have some level of education, some of them even have CXC subject, it is
Mm-hmm.
very difficult for them to get jobs. So this is where I would love the government to come in and really do an audit and really endeavor to employ at least a percentage of these persons. Because the government, there's a policy that say the government should employ 5%. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
if you do a check, there's the percentage of persons with disability within the government sector is not 5%.
It's not
And when they do
5%.
provide employment, it is not permanent. They're always contract employment. Recently, that is not good because we want these persons to be independent and feel a sense of independence. It would
Absolutely.
be
And
good
this is mm-hmm.
if they look at it and look at what is, and also I know recently they have the Disability Act and also the revamping of the special unit within the Ministry of Labor and Social.
Mm-hmm.
They are in the process of revamping that to employ coaches to go into companies to encourage private sector to employ persons with disabilities. So I hope that when that comes on stream, that there will be a change in the number of
Mm-hmm.
persons, acceptance of persons with visual disability and other types of disability in providing employment for them.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Ilton, this is a very critical area, that you mentioned. And that's what I wanted to find out, if you have any idea of the persons or the number, the percentage of persons who leave your institution, the percentage that goes over into high school, the percentage that goes over into to further their skills training, and the percentage that actually, move on into to work in the work world. So this is definitely an area that needs to be visited, as you mentioned, by the government to find out, and even the policymakers and the implementers, who
Right.
are working closely with the special needs or special education unit and so on, that they really need to zoom in on these issues and see how much that they can facilitate students and just people in general within this area of education. All
And
right. So,
what is quite
mhm,
interesting, the government in their 2030 vision statement, policy statement coming out of Planning Institute of Jamaica,
mhm,
spoke to the negative attitude and misconception as a threat. So it's there. They have it
mhm.
part in terms of on paper, but it will be good to see that reflected in real life.
Absolutely. And in further, and this is actually our first series, out of uh, our podcast, speaking on the issue of education, specifically dealing with the special persons with special needs, right? So this is our first podcast, and in further podcast, we will definitely be speaking with stakeholders in the education industry to include those persons and the practitioners and the experts in the area of special needs and the education who can speak more closely to really what is happening and what is being implemented by the government in terms of what they are doing actually and helping to develop this area of education. So definitely, I want you to look out for those podcasts to come. All right. So you were saying something?
Another area that I think is also critical is for the schools that have students with disability, the integrated school, that resources should also be provided, material resources, equipments, and stuff that can accommodate the child. Because when the child goes to the school, there's a phobia, there's a fear by the educators that how can we cope, how can we teach this child, because we don't have the resources and the material
resources.
So those are some of the things. So the ongoing upgrading and training of teachers to facilitate, because we talk about inclusive education. So we should move away from the talk and make it reality. I know Absolutely. They have a special needs coordinator. They have coaches in some of the schools, but it's not in all schools. So I'm saying it should be in all schools. And one ABS coach is not enough. Some schools have two, but some schools only have one. Some schools don't have any. And it's ridiculous, especially if you're going to look not only at visual disability, but other types of disability in terms of improving performance of the school.
Right, and that's definitely a matter of equity in education, just having some schools, how do you select these schools? Someone really needs to answer these questions and shed some light on what is really happening, as it relates to the amount of support being given to the various schools with special needs. All right, so we're going to close now, but before we close our conversation, Mrs. Ilton, can you share your contact details, contact information for School for the Blind? How can persons reach out to you and provide assistance and resources to assist?
Okay, the school is at 57 Manning. So if they have stuff, they can take it to the major or the principal, which is Aike Ilari, or if it's volunteerism or mentorship, they can reach out to myself, Mrs. Golden Hilton, or Mr. Sean Harvey, or the vice principal, Mrs. White, and the school number is 9251362.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Mrs. Ilton, for having this conversation with me. And I'm sure you will be on future episodes with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm thanking you too, because I hope that your podcast will reach the ears that needs to hear this information, especially about providing resources for some of the integrated schools, for all the integrated schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in today. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It's called Optalen, Optalen. Write a comment or review about this podcast. Tell us what you would like for us to discuss on our next episode. EdTalk, issues, perspectives, and trends in education.